Hello friends and freundins, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Troglointro channel. Today I will build the Panzer Kampfwagen IV Ausf.D, an old-school Tamiya kit from the distant year of 1977. It is a nice but very simple kit given the year it was released, so I decided to enrich it visually by adding some photo-etched parts from Aber. Also, I bought a set of road wheels and a beautiful set of tracks from Panzer Art. The first thing I did was to glue all of the simple photo-etched parts onto their pieces while they were still on sprues. Then I used my Proxon rotary to remove any unwanted elements that didn't look right. Later I would replace them and add even more with photo-etched parts. I covered all of the unwanted Tamiya holes with a mixture of putty and wood glue. Then I sanded everything down so that it looks flat and nice. The first questionable thoughts that started coming to my mind regarding this project were about the road wheels. You see, there was 16 of them in the Panzer Art set that I bought, while I needed 32, since each row has a double set of wheels. I didn't think much of it, so I decided to combine each one of them with the standard issued Tamiya road wheels. This would come and bite me in the behind later, since the two wheels looked very different to each other, and a little bit weird altogether. But I moved on with the assembly, and this is the part where it's all about the photo-etched parts. I don't have a photo-etched bending jig, so don't expect anything extra super special. I do my best with what I have, and what I have is actually a bunch of tweezers, my fingers and my fingernails. It is a pretty straightforward procedure from now on, so there isn't much to say. I'll just let the moving pictures do all of the talking. Slowly but steadily, and armed with a lot of patience, I would complete each sub-assembly and position it on the vehicle. Some of the Tamiya kit parts had to be heavily modified in order to fit the photo-etched parts properly. The jack, for example, was one of them, to which I added a couple of extra tiny handles myself. Other parts were way simpler to modify. At the same time, I would also add the original plastic parts to the assembly after I would make sure that there was no modification required on them. In some places around the plastic parts, I would remove some of the simple details and add my own custom-made ones. To some of them I would add some extra flavor by touching them up a bit, like the sides of the turret, onto which I carved some welding marks. and in such a way the assembly would go on. Sometimes with a bit of confusion, perhaps even some frustration, but always at the end of each assembly there was the satisfaction of seeing a properly placed tiny shiny photo-etched thingy elevating the quality of my model by adding an extra flavor of detail. It's totally worth all of the trouble once you see it nicely positioned. I replaced the plastic handles with ones that were made of wire, and I also drilled a hole in the barrel of the turret machine gun, which I drilled too much. But no worries, I fixed it. The driver's hatch and the ones on the turret I would keep open, because I wanted the crew of this tank to be visible in all of their glory. 4 of them, at least. The exhaust had its own rhapsody in this assembly odyssey, because it required many parts, both photo-etched and plastic. I ended up positioning the exhaust funnel on the wrong angle, and as a result, another tiny thingy part could not be aligned properly and did not fit in its place. So I had to resort into some sort of a patent in order to make it fit where it should. I know that this is not its correct position, but it happens sometimes that things get very complicated, and there is absolute necessity for an immediate solution. In result, the brain has to think clearly under sometimes extreme tension. we must always keep in mind that scale modeling is no funny business. But on the contrary, it's a never-ending voyage into the unknown, sometimes even heading towards complete destruction. It's kind of like a microcosm of reality, only with plastic model tanks in it. Eventually, the harder and more complicated sub-assemblies were all in place. So I started working on the figures. I bought a bunch of extra heads from Legend, which looked better and had much more detail than the original heads. I carved the holes for the necks with my Proxon rotary in order to make them fit better, and also did some adjustments on the limbs, specifically the arms, so that they could sit on the tank in a natural way, or at least as natural as possible. Once the figures were adjusted, I turned my attention to the stowage accessories. I chose the ones that I wanted to be on the back of the tank, and I positioned them roughly. Then I made a few tarps out of Tamiya epoxy putty, which I placed alongside the rest of the equipment. I'm very happy with the way the final result looks. I think this is my best pile of stowage so far. And once I tie it around with ropes, it will look even better. But this will be done in the next episode, after painting the vehicle. And I'm also pretty satisfied with the way the figures look. At this point, I glued the upper and lower hulls together, made sure that everything was connected properly, and I sealed the gap on the front with some Tamiya putty. I glued the stowage accessories in position, and I also positioned a chain on the front, along with a couple of other details here and there. Eventually, it was time to assemble the links of the tracks. A very simple and relatively easy procedure that nevertheless takes a lot of time. It is worth every minute though, because the tracks are finely detailed and they look beautiful. Although, I have to add that they are very sensitive and can easily break, since they are made of resin. So I had to be extra gentle when I was putting them together. Shh. As you have probably noticed over here, I ended up replacing the weird-looking road wheels with another set, this time from a company called FC Model Trend. They have a worn appearance, just the way I like it, and they look pretty good. And this time it's 32 of them. But then I saw a dark cloud approaching me as I was sailing on the scale modeling seas of adventure. And this time it had to do with the tracks and the front drive sprockets. Like I said before, I bought the tracks from Panzer Art. And don't get me wrong, they truly make beautiful models. But I have concluded that their products are slightly smaller than other 135 scale companies. The teeth of the sprockets would not align with the tracks. I tried sanding them down, but this was no good, because they were in a bigger scale than the tracks. Being overwhelmed and a little bit frustrated, I didn't think too much into it, so I decided to follow the brilliant example of Alexander the Great when he was in Gordion, and I ended up snapping a bunch of teeth from the sprockets. This, of course, solved the problem immediately, but for some reason it also looked very wrong. At this point, of course, there wasn't anything else that I could do, so I put each of the tracks in place, I positioned the figures, and also added a bucket on the back. And with all of this done, it was time to call this build complete. Or was it? The last moment before the completion of this video, I was bright enough to remember that I already had assembled another Panzer IV a few years earlier, for which I bought back then a set of beautiful RFM tracks. This old model was unpainted because I was in a full assembly mode back then, and for some unknown reason I had glued the drive sprockets on the tracks. But this was no problem because I needed a new set of drive sprockets anyways. So I decided to replace them entirely, and I was very lucky because the new ones fit perfectly on my tank. In the end, everything came together, and this makes me a very happy troglodyte. So now I could finally say that this house is clean. I mean, this build is complete. I am very proud of this build, and if you are equally proud, you can subscribe to my channel Like my videos and also leave me a message in the comment section below. This way you can tell me how proud you are about your builds. In the next episode I will paint and weather it, and also I will add some decals from the Balkan campaign of 1941 in Yugoslavia and Greece. I really hope you enjoyed this video, my friends and freundins. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ta!